a lot at the networking table. So I'll show you what I have. Feel free to send any thoughts or ideas of how I can be even more useful next time. And I apologize, I just made that go away. There we go. So my name's Haley Jones. This is what I thought we were going to cover today. I think in order to get trends to watch, I figure we have to show you where we were. Re-entry to live, I figure very important if you are a music manager. Upcoming trends, we're going to cover a little bit of that. And then finally, we've put together a music manager report for 2021. And I want to try to gather some contact information from you and see if we can't distribute that when it's ready. It's not actually ready yet, but you'll hear more about that as we go. So a little bit more about who we are and what we do. Anita, you did a great job. I work for MRC Data. MRC actually started as a TV and film studio. So they've done some really amazing shows like Ozark and House of Cards. Our intention with where we go with music data will be definitely bringing together all of entertainment data, but we're just wrapping up migration. So lots more great stuff to come. I think we'll be able to tell a better sync story, which is one of the things I've already heard at the networking table as we get a little bit down the road here. But MRC Data, more commonly known as Nielsen Music, most famous for an old product we had known as SoundScan that tracked sales. I'm assuming most people have heard of SoundScan. Today, we track music consumption. That's what you see on the left-hand side of the screen. So that's music streams, radio airplay, and also sales. We do that globally. We do that in Canada, and we do that in US. Our data powers the Billboard charts. Two main products that we have that you may have heard of are Music Connect and BDS Radio. It's the same data organized completely differently depending on what your use case is. On the right-hand side of the screen, we also do syndicated research. So we have an annual study you may have heard of called Music 360 that's based on consumer behavior around music. Voila. We just did Podcast 360, just came out of the field. And you're going to hear a little bit about some of those studies here in my presentation today. And finally, at the bottom of the screen, we do more custom research. So for major music festivals, for some artists, sponsors of those festivals, anything that you were trying to figure out, brand evaluation, we can certainly do that too. But let's get to the good stuff. To understand where we're going, I think it helps to see where we've been. So the first few slides come from our year-end report. Looking at 2020, a lot of this data from the US. Global data we definitely have, but still in its infancy and kind of hard to break down today for album sales and by territory, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that. With or without a pandemic, sales have been down for many years in a row now, which continued last year, and you can see that on this slide. So a top line, if you will, at the top of the screen, sales about 10% year over year. But the much smaller piece of the pie, so at the bottom of the screen, you can see it broken out. Digital song sales still making up the bulk of sales. But really the story is around vinyl album sales where I know it's a small piece of the pie, but it's a mighty piece of the pie with a full 46% growth year over year, right in the middle of a pandemic. So people are still definitely purchasing vinyl and finding a lot of interest in that. Here's what streaming looks like in 2020. On the left, you can see overall streaming growth up nearly 12% in 2020 compared to 2019. On-demand streaming up 17% year over year. On the right, a look at where that growth is coming from. So new music versus older music. And in our tools, we call older music catalog. So that's anything 18 months or older. And in 2020, a majority of the growth in volume anyway was because people were looking for comfort food, right? Songs they know and love and music that made them feel better. Now, it sort of makes sense when you look at it this way. The year of cancellations, right? There were just fewer releases overall in 2020. So this is broken out by quarter last year. And first quarter this year, though it's only through mid-February, I suspect that will look a little different when I actually gather the numbers for the full quarter, but you can see the trend. Lots less new releases in 2020. But if you happen to have catalog with your artist, that might be valuable. Here's current to catalog by genre for just on-demand streams in 2020. And interestingly, this doesn't look too different to previous years. Catalog making up a full 63% of all on-demand streams in the year. And there's just one genre where, currents lead, and that's R&B and hip hop, as you can see here. So one more slide from the year-end report. Maybe it's just me, but I always like to point this out because I hear it often, and I have my air quotes up right now when I say it, rock is dead. And in my opinion, it's not really true. So what you're looking at here, consumption for 2020 broken out by how it was consumed and by genre. So on the left, total consumption, followed by album sales, followed by physical album sales. So think CDs and vinyl. And then finally, that bar on the right is all on-demand streaming. And this is color-coded by genre. So dark blue is hip hop at the bottom of the bars. The next thing up is the medium blue, and that's rock. The turquoise is a notch above, which is actually pop, and then country and Latin. So hip hop, certainly the most consumed, which is followed by rock, and then comes pop, which I think really surprises a lot of people. Though also notice when you're talking about sales, rock still tends to sort of lead the pack. To state the obvious, lots of turmoil last year. And we were lucky enough to do a series of what we call COVID studies, where each of them with about, a few thousand people. Wave 10 of our COVID study coming out here in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things we learned from those studies is on this slide. People care what your artist thinks. And I know from talking to a lot of my clients, whether it was real, whether it's perceived, there's a real risk involved in stepping up to support something you believe in. So I wanted to show you this. 6 out of 10 people that we talked to say they'd support an artist who stood up for a cause. And about 73% of the general population took some action to support Black Lives Matter, whether that was getting involved in protests or even just posting something on social media. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention short form video, i.e. Platforms like TikTok when we talk about 2020. So nearly 6 out of 10 people using a site like TikTok, and 7 out of 10 of those people engaging with music when they do so. Seems obvious, but here's a real world example of the power those video platforms can have. So Pofu's Deathbed got millions of people choosing that song as the soundtrack for their videos when they posted on TikTok, even before the EP release. So you can see in week 7 of 2020, Deathbed started to go viral with TikTok. The views of those videos drove consumption about the peak, about week 13, 14, and you can see the EP didn't even come out till week 19. So we don't necessarily have a crystal ball, but here are a couple of trends that we feel confident will continue in 2021. And the first thing I'll mention is new genres and the graying of the lines between the genres. We continue to see growth in consumption globally in Afropop. When I say Afropop, think an artist like Burna Boy. In one of those COVID studies that I told you about, 11% of the people we talked to said they listened to Afropop in the last couple of weeks. We feel really confident we're going to continue to see growth in more and more conversion to streaming from more traditional forms of audio consumption. So streaming's trajectory will continue. And to that end, when we just isolate growth in streaming during the pandemic, there are a couple of genres that really stand out, and that's country and Latin. Lots of reasons that we feel like this is happening. Listeners are out of their cars, into their homes, so less radio, more streaming. Also worth mentioning with country and Latin, these are artists who did an amazing job really getting creative, getting innovative, staying in touch with their audiences, whether that was just virtual concerts or otherwise. So speaking of virtual concerts and re-entry to live, to help our clients across the industry, we asked lots of questions about this space. So lots of familiar faces in the last year, also lots of startups in the space. This is definitely not a complete list, but just some of the pivot startups and familiar faces in virtual in 2020. Starting with that 10,000 foot view, how many consumers have actually attended a virtual concert? How many people intend to attend a virtual concert? That's what you see on this slide. So those who have attended in light blue, those who intend to attend a virtual concert in dark blue. And this is a question that we asked in all the waves, so through the whole pandemic of our COVID study. So we plotted the responses over time, and that's what you can see on this graph. Worth noting here, wave 10 out in a couple weeks, hoping that we continue to see that growth and trajectory there. Also worth noting, while we see a lot of growth in the virtual concert space, it's not exactly what we would call mainstream yet, right? 4 out of 10 people saying they intend to attend a virtual concert. So this view from people who have already attended a virtual concert, and nearly 70% say that happened since the pandemic began, and about 60% said they actually paid for a virtual concert. So good news. Here's how they found out about them. Mostly on social media, definitely on their favorite streaming platform, and about 40% say they discovered a virtual concert on a TV show. What does it look like when we're vaccinated? Does virtual have staying power? And from the people we talked to, the answer is yes. Virtual concerts are here to stay, probably will evolve a little bit. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see 6 out of 10 say they'd still consider paying for a virtual concert even after the vaccine is widely available, which could look like a lot of things. So on the right-hand side of the slide, some of the most popular responses we got when we asked what people would be willing to pay for. And the first couple of responses, a hybrid model, people willing to pay for a concert happening in real time in a venue. Obviously, people said they'd be happy to pay to see a music festival virtually. If it were a concert produced solely for virtual, there's no audience in the room, people not mad at that. They definitely like if it's interactive. And the other thing, people not mad at, a full 18% of those people said if it were pre-recorded at some earlier time. So I think those virtual concerts have some staying power. So options for additional revenue for you if you were to do one of these virtual concerts. A full 7 out of 10 live streamers said they are willing to pay for exclusive merch, and some examples of just some of the people that we found that did that during the pandemic. And in addition to ticket sales and merch, whether you're big, whether you're small, virtual events tend to really drive consumption too. So a couple of examples on this page. The Brandy versus Monica event, which was at the end of August, the Niall Horan from Royal Albert Hall in November. And finally, to show you, you don't have to be a huge artist like Brandy and Monica to really make an impact. I put the Fleet Foxes here, who did a show in December to promote their new album. All 3 of these events drove really massive spikes in consumption. So the last thing I wanted to show you, I mentioned that music managers report that we're working on. We're going to pull together a small but mighty report that we hope will help you. By the way, really open to feedback if these questions are not enough for you, but these are the questions that we hope that this Music Managers Report 2021 will answer. It'll have very fresh data. With that survey that I've mentioned that's coming out of, we just pulled it out of the field yesterday, so we think this can be ready in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And I'd love it if you left your name for us so that we can follow up with you when it's ready. And Amy, I was hoping you could actually post that billboard link for me in the chat box, because it's really hard for me to put a link that's actually clickable in my presentation. And that's what I prepared. I hope it was helpful. And I don't know if have time. I guess we probably don't have time for questions, but Nita or Amy, I'll let you guys jump in and guide me here. Maybe.
You know what? Hi, Haley, that was great. Thank you. And I think, you know what, let's do a couple of questions. I mean,
sure.
I guess you have 5 minutes, 6 minutes, somewhere in there. So go for it. Do we have anything in the chat, folks, if you have questions, I guess, or in the Q&A?
And I believe that we had someone with their hand up, but they have just disappeared. So if you did want to ask a question please feel free to raise your hand again.
And I'm happy to share again if there's anything. By the way, we're going to post this on your website, right? So people can see the presentation again. I'm happy to share a PDF at some point too. So if there were any stats that you didn't get to, then you can certainly grab this later. I'll send it to you again, Amy. And Anna.
Yeah, and feel free to send it over to me, of course, Haley. We'll put it on the MMF US website as well, and have
exactly, we can do that.
Section. It'll be a resource.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do see one question in the chat box, process of gathering information surrounding them. Yes, so many new players in the space. That's definitely something that we're working on, but right now, not data we necessarily have. So, I mean, other than talking to actual consumers, a couple thousand of them at a time, that's what we've been doing. And that's what we feel like we have to offer. So.
Great. I don't see any other questions coming up. No hands, nothing in the chat, nothing in the Q&A. But like we said, we'll make that info available, Haley, when you send it along. And yeah, thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
much.
Thanks for
Thank you very much. It was amazing.
Good. Hopefully there's something useful.
Definitely there were things that got my attention.
Good.
So, but I don't want to take the mic. So I don't know if we should go to the tables and start the conversations there, and then maybe with that everyone gets a little bit more comfortable, and if a question pops out during the networking, they can try to ask.
Right. So now we're we're going into the next section of our agenda, if that's okay. Hey, Amy, you're good with that?
Well, there's just a couple of Q&A things popping up in the Q&A.
Go for it.
One of them is asking us, according to your research, what would you say is the #1 genre?
Well, #1 genre for consumption overall, still R&B hip hop. Yes, that's true in the US, that's true in Canada. It's not necessarily true globally. Though R&B hip hop does really well globally too, but yes. Now,
do you recall, Haley, what's #1 globally? Sorry, do you recall #1 globally?
You know, I need to pull that together. I'm not going to misspeak. Yes.
And another question is, when will the manager's report be available?
Yeah, I don't have a date because literally, like I said, we pulled this data out of the field yesterday. My hope is 2 or 3 weeks. I feel pretty confident with 2 weeks. Where does that put us? May. Yes?
Sometime right around the beginning of May.
Correct.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Great. Thank you so much.
Sorry, the final question here, I think, is, so rock is the #1 genre in sales? Is that correct?
Yes.
They're all they're all popping in here now. What about world music? Do you see it growing in consumption?
We do, and it's interesting. I think you know, the blurring between the genres. It's interesting because sometimes that's hard to pull. We definitely see world music. And the other thing I have to say, this goes to what I was talking about, the blurring of the lines between genres. Oh, why is it escaping me? The Korean band, forgive me. The huge goes in world music right now. So is there huge growth in world music? Yes. Somebody, Nita? Amy?
BST?
Yes. Hello. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So that's in world music. Is there growth in world music? Definitely.
Folks asking about getting a copy of the data. So you had mentioned you'll send us a PDF. We'll send that out to everyone who signed up. We'll post it on our websites and share it with our audiences. So whoever is here, you'll definitely have multiple avenues to access that information. And then maybe I'm going to wrap up with this last question here. And again, if you have more questions, we're still going to be networking for another hour. Haley will be around for a little while longer, I think. You can track her down. So the last question here is, do you have any available data for Latin America region?
We have global data today. Global data is still in its infancy, and I don't know, Billboard just launched a global chart literally in the fall. Today, global data is available in one lump sum. So in other words, not yet able to break it out into territories. Latin is absolutely one of the top genres globally. But to that end, not being able to break it out by territory, that is definitely what's next for us. We expect to have that information late summer, early fall, fingers crossed. We've been so focused on migration from Nielsen over to MRC. That's definitely something we're working on building out.
So the data that you presented to us today was
US.
It's US.
US.
I say, okay, we were talking about North America trends, but it's really coming from US consumption.
So,
US
correct. Yeah, and Canada looks a lot like US. We do have the capability to break out Canada, and it looks a lot like the US. Mostly the trends are the same. Globally starts to look a little bit different, but again, I feel like that information, while fascinating today, is more interesting when we're actually able to break it out into territory so that I can show you, right, all of South America or Central America. And today I'm not in a position to be able to do that. However, yes.
So that's something the teams are working on, pulling
it's a very big undertaking. We're processing something like 65 billion streams every single week right now. It's kind of mind-blowing. It really is. So
that is. Well, thank you so much, Haley. Amy, we're good on questions?
Thank you.
We covered it. Thank you so much, Haley. This has been really great. I love it. Thanks for coming, and we hope to have you back and with new information and new data for the next time. Yeah, it's funny that someone mentioned here, if BTS is world music, what is the weekend of pop and R&B? And no, I mean, I agree, right? There's a whole lot of what are we calling these things? But actually, Haley, when you go to pull data and you talk about genres and you look at an artist such as BTS, you don't lump them into sort of pop, or I mean, do you put BTS into world?
BTS into world in world today. Does that change at some point? Probably, but for 2020, it was still lumped into world music. Yep.
Okay.
So, does it change today? I think it still is too. I would need to go double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's where it still is today.
Is it not based on the marketing genre in the way that the recordings, for example, are distributed out?
Wait,
the market. Sorry. So when a label, for example, distributes out, or if you're working with your digital distributor, the Orchard or what have you, you designate genre. There's a variety of ways to get to genre, but it's the marketing data that goes into your metadata, right? That's sent out. Is that not the designated signifying genre? Is the one that the label artist designate as such?
So it's complicated. Billboard definitely looks at and has a say in how it gets filed in our data. That said, there's absolutely, when you're registering your music with us and when your distributor is inputting your music, yes, you can choose a genre. And it's not necessarily chosen by artist, right? Because each song can be different. So more at a track level. And the other thing that's important is, while each track can have one core genre, oftentimes, again, back to the graying, the blurring of the lines between genres, while you can only have one core genre for each track, you're also able to pick multiple. If your song's going to cross over, I mean, maybe you're...
I was asking more about the way you guys, how MRC tracks the data, so then when you give us this presentation, I was asking more about what's MRC basing the data on, and you're basing it on the marketing data. The data attached to the artist, the tracks, etc. Correct? Okay. So if BTS says they're pop, then it doesn't go into world.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the Billboard piece too. There are more. yes, you input how it looks, but also because Billboard looks at it, how are we going to look at it globally? Is it one way in the US? Is it another in another genre globally?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, anyway, sorry, I meant to. Thank you so much, Haley. I wanted to clarify that point. That's great. So thank you so much for this information. And I guess we'll move on now to our next component of the agenda, which is our breakout group discussions. So what we did, folks, is created this, and Amy, I'll let you describe again, you know, the format, because some people jumped on after that first half hour networking, but in general, what we did was we labeled the tables topic 1, and you'll see when you get back to that format where you see the tables, you'll see topic 1 under some tables, topic 2 under other tables in the third, I think, and fourth rows. What we did was we designated topic 1 as trading notes on alternative revenue streams to live. So what worked and what didn't. And it's really just a theme for your table. If you'd like to actually, meet each other, that's great. But if you would like to jump into the actual topic and start discussing it, we wanted to give you all a general theme. So trading notes on alternative revenue streams to live, what worked, what didn't, for you guys to compare notes, is sort of the theme or of topic 1 tables. The theme of topic 2 tables is growth strategy for 21 and 2022. So again, it's a very general topic in which we thought we could get you guys an ability to galvanize around that theme and discuss as you wish. But we also do encourage you all to say hello and meet each other. We're going to do that from now until about 5:30, and really as long as you want. And then from 5:30 to 6 is really just open networking. So feel free at any time to jump out of your table and onto another table. We do encourage everyone to cross-pollinate. So maybe if you want to do 10 minutes talking about your theme and meeting everyone, and then move over to another table and another table, feel free to, jet around the room and catch as many tables as you wish, pending that there's an open chair, which is signified by the little red piece. Amy, do you want to add to that?
Sure. We wanted to give people as much time as possible to chat and meet each other. So rather than doing a sort of formal table by table, share what you discussed, we thought that if you come up with a great takeaway in your discussions, then please share it with everyone by just throwing it in the general chat. And as Nita said, we can continue to move around table to table throughout. And so for folks who maybe haven't done that yet, make sure that your camera and your microphone are on. Otherwise, you won't show up in the conversation, even though you'll see yourself sitting at a table. As Nita mentioned, you can move to any empty chair. You just have to double click and you will move to that new conversation. And if you are having difficulty connecting, click on the need help button at the bottom left corner of the screen, and that connects you. You can stay in the event, but it connects you to a REMO specialist via chat who can help troubleshoot. And I think that's it for a crash course in REMO. And I guess we'll send everyone back into the room, back to the floor, and perhaps we'll come back and do some short closing remarks in about 20 minutes, half an hour from now. So with that, we'll see you back in the room, everyone. Thanks so much.
Yay. Happy networking.